Saul Over Soon.
You're slipping Jimmy. Slipping Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun.
Who moves cones? Who does that?
Money is not beside the point. Money is the point.
Saul Over Soon.
It's a real thing. I didn't make it up.
You're perfect for each other.
Welcome to Saul Over Soon, a Better Call Saul podcast. I'm Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth. No, I did not graduate from the American Samoa Institute of Law. I'm here with my co-host Magnum Mills, and we're going to give you our overall thoughts here on season 6, part 1 of Better Call Saul.
Davey G, good evening, sir. And man, we waited a bit to do this. Want to be like, all right, we're going to take a minute, marinate on this. I've been marinating for a while, man. I'm still thinking about this all the time. Crazy season 6, part 1 here. Crazy finale. Thank you for checking out Saul Over Soon. I am Magnum Mills. Please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us by searching for Saul Over Soon, and you can find us at joeblowfootballshow.com. You can find us on social media at Saul Over Soon. And if you have any feedback, theories, anything like that, you can send it to sauloversoon@gmail.com.
May it please the court, dear sir, let the record show that Saul Over Soon is a full spoiler show. Anything from Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, and hell, even El Camino is fair game here. If you haven't watched some of those things, you really should stop this right now. Go handle that. Take as long as you need. We'll be here whenever you're ready, as soon as you get back. This is your first and final spoiler warning.
Roger Dodger. With that out of the way, let's talk about the first 7 episodes of season 6. That's part 1 of season 6. And what we're going to do here is we're going to break down our favorite stuff, favorite quotes, favorite moments, talk a little bit about the characters, the main plot arcs here. And then finally, we'll pick our favorite episode, talk about how we ranked them, and then give an overall grade for season 6, part 1.
Let's open with a teaser. We had 7 pretty freaking awesome teasers here that functioned as cold opens throughout season 6, part 1. And yes, your boys, Jamie G, Magnum Mills, we went ahead and we ranked each one of them from 1 to 7. And here's what we got. Magnum Mills, lead us off.
And we both at number 7 had the cold open for episode 5, where it was Werner Ziegler's slide rule being encased in lucite. Thought it was really cool, and it did play into the plot at the end there when Lalo found it. I thought it was very cool, but overall it was fairly inconsequential compared to some of the other ones. We both had that ranked 7, so I think we're in agreement there.
Absolutely cool how it came together, but like you said, it just, especially with some of these other ones. Up next, we had Lalo watching the Super Lab site. Magnum Mills had this ranked at number 4. I had this ranked at 5. This was from season 6, episode 7. Again, I really like this cold open, but there were just, man, some real bangers here, dude, where it kind of pushed this one down to me a little bit. I think this is going to come back and be more consequential and kind of bigger news as we head into part 2. And maybe we'll save that for some of our spoiler talk later on and throughout this podcast. But that's why I had it ranked where I had it ranked, Magnum Mills. You had up there a little bit at 4.
I really liked it, especially the visual of Lalo looking through those binoculars out of the storm drain. I fucking love that visual. It was just a little bit slow, maybe, because you kind of had to figure this is where Lalo was going once he was tracking down Ziegler's guy Casper there. So it wasn't really a surprise. It was just, you saw him sleeping in the car with the egg timer that they used in the teaser. So I thought it probably could have been trimmed up a little tighter, and it didn't really surprise, but I love the whole visual portion of it. And at number 5, we had the cold open teaser from episode 2. And that's when Mike and his boys there, they go into Nacho's house, they open his safe, and then they swap it out for another one. Mike palms his dad's ID. They put a thing in there for Bolsa to find later. Cool scene. I had it at 6. You had it at 3. Definitely does affect the plot, and it was a nice way to show how much more competent Mike's guys are with the Bolsas. You had it at 3, so any thoughts on it?
Yeah, for me, look, anytime I get Mike doing anything, it's a win. Okay, never doubt the Ehrmantraut. If there's one thing you learned from Saul Over Soon podcast, it is never doubt the Ehrmantraut. And Mike, well, Mike is always right. I thought this was so cool how they did it. And it reminded me of kind of those high pressure, high stake moments we saw throughout Breaking Bad. And we've seen kind of here and there throughout Better Call Saul. It did affect the plot line in a serious way, both with Nacho and his father. And I just thought this was kind of the emergence of, Mike really gaining control of kind of his role with who he becomes with Gus's essentially his right hand here going forward. And this was right as he's in the thick of kind of proving that and doing what Mike does. So I just thought this was really cool. And so much of this season was impacted by like the Nacho storyline, and rightfully so. And to me, I had to put this up there.
Yeah, we'll get to a little bit more Nacho in a bit here. At number 4, we had the cold open teaser from episode 6, and that was the flashback to Kim when she was caught shoplifting and her mom came to pick her up. I had it at 2, you had it at 6. We don't get much backstory at all for Kim Wexler, and I thought this was very important, especially when you get her mom telling her, "Oh, don't worry, kiddo, you got away with it." And I think that is something that really impacted, how we thought of her and how we could relate to her going through all she did. Like when Hamlin points it out, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this shit to me? Like, what is she trying to fill or whatever? And I think that scene helped us to maybe get at that. You had it at 6. Why do you think it was a little bit more inconsequential?
Everything you said is spot on. I want more background with Kim. I thought this was super telling and allowed us to kind of understand and believe maybe why Kim would quote unquote break bad so hard with Jimmy here, even though we got sprinkles of it with, the tequila and running up the bill and different things throughout previous seasons. I thought this was just super telling. 6 is not a knock on this at all. It's just the way the cookie crumbled here for me.
And we'll get to one that you liked a little bit more here. That's at number 3. We have the cold open from episode 4. And that's when Mr. and Mrs. Ryman, they're riding the bikes through the neighborhood. And you're like, what the fuck are they doing? And then they go in the house and there's dude with guns and the surveillance spotters. And we find out that's like Gus's like secret safe house, basically. I had that at 5. You had it at 2. Again, I thought technically shot really well. And it definitely left you wondering a little bit, especially when you see the cameras are on Gus's house. You're trying to figure out, is this on Gus's side? Is this someone who's, surveilling Gus? I enjoyed it. Just overall, again, it kind of meandered a little bit when they're stopping to look at the paint in the house. It was enjoyable and everything like that. But like you said, stiff competition here. So I had it at 5. You had it at 2. Explain.
Yes, I did. Good, sir. I mean, come on. Why would you paint your house that color? What were they thinking? I can't even believe the HOA allowed it. But all jokes aside, Mills, this one kept me guessing the entire time. I knew something was coming. I couldn't figure out what the hell it was.
That's what she said.
And I just thought this was so cool how it was done. And it took you through the entire setup. And you realize just what length Gus Fring is willing to go to keep himself safe and do whatever it takes to kind of get where he wants to be and what he wants. I didn't see this and understand what it was until I was deep into it. And for that's worthy of being up there for me. This is just one of those killer freaking opens that shit, man. They show a cold open and you have to wait until, halfway through or the end of the episode to kind of get what it means. And that's super cool. This was one where you kind of got through the cold open. And you're like, oh shit, that's awesome. Now we just kind of figure that out. So really enjoyed this one, Magnum Mills. Thought it was super cool.
At number 2, we have my number 1 stunner. You had it ranked at 4. That's the opening from episode 3. Which is the episode where we lost Nacho at the end, and you open with that bright flower in the desert, and then you kind of see something in the dirt. It starts to rain, and you see it's a piece of glass, which comes back around in the end. And that, again, like you just said, you have to wait to figure out what it's going to be. But based on history, I think I was a Dead Freight, the Breaking Bad episode where we see the spider in the jar at the beginning and you wonder how it's going to work. And then at the end, the kid rolls up on them after they complete the job and Todd shoots them. And that's the feeling I got when I saw that. Despite it being a pretty innocuous scene, I was just like, oh shit, something bad is going to happen. I don't know. It was just a piece of glass, right? It could have meant almost anything. I couldn't even, when the first time I saw it, honestly, I wasn't even 100% sure it was a piece of glass. I just knew it was something. I thought maybe the flower was important. Like I said, that's number 1 for me. I didn't have a lot of hesitation for it. Jamie G, you had it at 4.
You quickly made that your number 1. Not a whole lot of anybody else kind of
it was that
could have been a contender.
I had a top 2 tier, but it was almost like a top 3 that I was pretty sure when we started to do this. So
yeah. I mean, this looked like a flower where freaking elven blood had been spilled and it's the only thing growing there. You knew it was going to be something with that broken glass. And you're right, it had that feeling of impending doom. It was so beautifully done the way this came together. Wonderful shot. And you're right, it does give you that You know, the scene with the spider with Todd and Breaking Bad is spot on, and they've done that so many times throughout this show and kind of this whole universe, where they've done something super special like that at the beginning. That's like, okay, that what the hell is that? That like has nothing to do with anything. And then you get to the end of the episode and you're like, oh shit, you know, your mind is just blown on like how it all comes together. Really cool scene. This was really difficult, dude. This was 7 awesome cold opens, was it not? I mean, shit.
It absolutely was. I enjoyed all of them. Almost all of them were very plot relevant in one way, shape, or form. They gave you some information, but they didn't spoon feed it to you. Jamie G, I'll let you do number 1 here because it happens to be your number 1 overall.
I had to go with the first episode 1, season 6, and that is the cold open that we see Saul Goodman's house being emptied out by what we believe is the FBI or the DA, something. And dude, this got me so hyped. I rewatched this thing probably 20 times. I absolutely love it. You got a glimpse into a part of Saul that this show, okay, not the universe, this show, Better Call Saul, we've never been able to fully see. This is the first time we saw a fully matured Saul Goodman in all of his glory, for better or worse, without Kim, without Chuck, without anybody getting in his way. And you saw what he accomplished and the life he lived and what mattered to him, and how you think he was probably always chasing something he could never get, and no amount of money filled it. I just thought this was so well done. A couple of Easter eggs in there. The way the camera kind of brings you through every angle of the house, and it ends with, you know, tequila bottle top. This just, I don't think they could have did it any better. This, not only is it number 1 on my list, this may be one of my favorite cold opens to any show ever. Like, I absolutely love this.
You said most of the good stuff there. I had it at 3. I think what you were also saying is we got to see his gold toilet, right? That was what you were really like. That's the real Saul. Like, he is a man who sits on a golden throne. Very cool. Like you said, some Easter eggs, some like kind of flash forward Easter eggs almost, because it's stuff that we didn't even know we were going to see yet. And we saw Caldera's Black Book there. We saw a couple other things. Good stuff there. And it was really nice out because we're used to getting the season opening teaser be with Gene in black and white. And we got this one where it started in black and white. And then as the ties started coming down, it shifted to color. Thought that was really cool.
Man, I'm excited about this. It is time for our favorite quotes. Yes, we went ahead and we ranked a minimum of 15 quotes each from season 6, part 1. And shit, man, here are our top 5.
Well, actually, let's give the honorable mentions, because first, you had your number 1 quote, which didn't make it into the top 5. And that's from episode 2 of season 6. And that's when Jimmy's, you know, he's talking to Kit. He says,
Wolves and sheep.
Huh?
Nothing.
thoughts on why that was number 1 for you?
Throughout this thing, we've seen Jimmy kind of be afraid of stepping in fully with Kim, especially, into who he becomes as Saul Goodman. And this was kind of a snippet where he said it with conviction to Kim at a time when she needed to hear it. And I just thought this defines everything, the way Jimmy views the world. And it kind of started way back when he had access to all that cash from the Kellermans and he turned it in. And I think something switched in his mind. He stopped living up to what his brother was and wanted him to be. He stopped, he realized that he could have the love of his life and still kind of chase his dream here. And I think this is the first time where like he stood on an island with conviction, and that's who he became. Someone who lives his life by wolves and sheep. That's how he compartmentalizes all the crazy shit he's going to do as Saul Goodman. Wolves and sheep, baby. So to me, it was super powerful.
Yeah, and that's a callback to the scene at his family store. Remember when the guy comes in and hustles his pops and everything? So I think they're also directly pulling from that. For our second honorable mention, it was a fun one. I had it at 13. You had it at 3. This is from episode 4 of season 6. And it's when Saul first gets his business going and he talks to a client named Spooge.
Mr. Spooge? It's just Spooge. Just Spooge, duly noted.
Just Spooge. Just Spooge.
This is really early on, and this was just so funny. He had so many rando characters in there, dude. And just to get a guy just named Spooge. It broke me every time I've watched it. It's still funny to me. In a show that has humor, and I just, man, this was so funny. Just great writing, something so stupid and silly, but it worked so well in the moment.
Our final honorable mention here is from episode 7 of season 6, the finale there, and it's actually a line from Hamlin. I had it at 2, JVG had it at 12, and that's when Hamlin basically just verbally decimates Jimmy and Kim.
You two are soulless. Jimmy, you can't help yourself. Chuck knew it. You were born that way. But you, one of the smartest and most promising human beings I've ever known. And this is the life you choose.
The whole season was kind of built, at least the whole part 1 of season 6 was built around this get Hamlin arc. And they did it, and Saul's getting his sandpiper money, but he was going to get that money anyways. And they don't even necessarily need it right now. We know why Jimmy's doing it for Kim. That part's not hard to figure out, but what her real motivation is here, Hamlin names all the possible things, and maybe it's all of it, maybe it's none of it, is she had the chance, right? She was going to Santa Fe. She had her dream, what she really wanted to do, the thing that made her so happy, and she turned around for this. So that was why it was very important to me.
You're right. There was so much build up heading to this kind of head off between Hamlin, and he just rips him. And shout out Howard Hamlin. Hammering Howard Hamlin. I love the guy. I love the actor. This was a big moment for him, and he rips him completely. And you know what? He's not necessarily wrong, but wolves and sheep.
That it is, friendo. And that brings us to our top 5. At number 5, we have a quote from the ADA, our friend Bill. That's from episode 4 of season 6. I had it at 6 overall. Jamie G had it at 7. And that's when he's having the conversation with Jimmy, and Jimmy's pissed why he's getting the cold shoulder, and Bill tells him,
there's proving, and then there's knowing.
This was important to me because that's basically the Saul Goodman mantra going forward, right? That's pretty much what he tells everyone. That's why he's a criminal lawyer, because there's proving and then there's knowing. The cops can know whatever they want, still got to prove it. And that's what Bill's point is here, that's the criminal side of things. That's not the way they're supposed to operate. That's why it was up there pretty high for me. Any other thoughts on it from you?
Yeah, look, we were pretty much neck and neck on this one. You had it 6, I had it 7 overall. I felt the exact same way. And again, you're kind of watching Jimmy's life from before, when he worked as there earning that check each client that he served, to now. And you see that this is kind of a pivotal moment where he goes from like Jimmy McGill practicing law to Saul Goodman practicing law. And so I thought that was pretty important.
This was a little bit of a heavier season of Saul, so we didn't get a ton of, most of the good quotes were, more heavy monologue type stuff. At number 4, we went with a little bit of a fun one from episode 5. And, that's when Saul's on a roll, and he says,
and who is this Saul Goodman? You
You got it. What Colonel Sanders is to chicken, Saul Goodman is to the law.
I had this at 7 overall. Jamie G had it at 4. Other than it was just, for me, just one of those, like a classic Saul line. It's a t-shirt line. That's what I would say. It's a t-shirt line. That's how I'm playing it for me. Any other kind of thoughts on it? I don't think it means a lot other than he was trying to be fast food of law kind of. He's cool with that. He's not trying to be high-end boutique food. He's cool with being the colonel.
Yes, it is classic Saul Goodman. I love it for that. T-shirt line all the way. Yes. Hilarious, great. Just everything you come to expect out of Saul Goodman when he has a line, dude. It's just one of those classic one-liners. Loved it for all those reasons.
And number 3, we have my number 1 overall poll. This was 10 overall for Jamie G. This is from episode 3, and it's part of Nacho's basically final fuck you to this world.
I put you in that chair. Oh yeah, your heart meds. I switched them for sugar pills. You were dead and buried, and I had to watch this asshole bring you back. So when you are sitting in your shitty nursing home and you're sucking down on your Jell-O night after night for the rest of your life, you think of me. You twisted fuck.
Nacho had a chance, right? He could have tried to sell Gus out or something, and he, for the sake of his father and everything else, he played it to the fullest, but the bonus was he probably meant most of it too. So it was kind of one of those things where he actually got to let out both his real feelings and do the right thing for the people he loves. Yeah, so number one stunner for me. You had it at 10. Any additional thoughts?
This was an incredible fucking scene. And so much of the early part of this season centered around what was happening with Nacho. And it kept, dude, it was edge of the seat type shit with Nacho there for several episodes in a row, where the whole time you're just like fucking white knuckling it on what's going on with Nacho. And he didn't even have to say anything. That's how good of a job acting, writing, everything worked here with Nacho. And I love him for this. The man, he is a real dude. This is a man that's facing his own death, putting it all on the line to save his father, who he had that insanely emotional, tear-jerking conversation with earlier on the phone that last time. I mean, shit, dude, that brought a tear to my eye. This was amazing. And yes, I think he meant it. Dude, he went out the way he needed to go out. And if you know you're going to die, man, super proud of Nacho on this, dude. Wonderful scene.
And there's one thing. When we went into this, for me, I was going to put the cone line at number one. I can't lie. But then I realized there are two different cone lines. There's the initial Saul yelling about the cone, and then there's him doing it, the reenactment to Kim. So I'm like, oh boy, I can't make them 1 and 2, but then I'm going to have to choose. And then I was like, you know what? There's so many meaningful quotes. So I split the baby. Basically, what I did is I took the cone line, I had it number 3. This is from episode 4. I had it 3. Jamie G had it at 5. They move the cone. What kind of asshole moves a cone?
No, they moved the cone? What kind of asshole moves a cone? Oh, crap.
Look, this is just a line. I've already used this so many times in my personal life already because the cone is metaphorical. The cone can be basically anything. It's just like a meme, right? It's just a template. So you can plug whatever, they moved X. What kind of asshole does X? That's it. Basically, it's a format. Love it. I had 3, you had 5. Just any other thoughts other than, and especially because he was dressed up like Hamlin when he was doing it. I know it's a quote, but the mental picture of him doing it dressed as Hamlin just is so good.
So good. And I think I actually had the first part of this quote higher than this one. But yes.
Yeah, see, I kind of buried one because I didn't think it was fair to put, because they were both about the cone. I didn't want to.
Yeah, no,
I Hamlin. I didn't want to just stack like his whole monologue or something.
Same. But I split the baby and went the opposite way. But they're both fantastic. This was one of the better scenes throughout the entire series or season rather, and maybe even series. And yeah, this is right up there. And you're right, it applies to everything, dude. Just this past weekend, some asshole took my spot. I'd left for 2 minutes. Some asshole takes my spot. I was like, you know what? I should put a cone there. Just see if the asshole is that big of an asshole to move the cone. Love it. It's so good. We'll use it forever. Thank you, Better Call Saul, for giving us that just pure gold.
That's one of those things. I haven't really looked around the internet. I don't know if this is actually a thing or we're just the only people who love this so much. I just assume since this is like the greatest love in history, everybody would just love this and think this is maybe it's just us. If it is, that's cool because it's more cone for us, so to speak.
It's a double damn.
Double damn.
Damn. At number 1, we elected to go with a piece of Hamlin's monologue that's obviously from episode 7, the last episode of part 1 of season 6 here. I had it at 5. You had it at 2. Again, I kind of split this wasn't all one monologue. It was split into pieces a little bit. So it was tough to pick and choose. This is one particular where he goes,
I thought you did it for the money, but now it's so clear. Screw the money. You did it for fun. You get off on it. You're like Leopold and Loeb, 2 sociopaths.
All right, that's enough.
Oh, you know it's true. You just have the guts to admit it.
Great, now you need to go.
I'm going to make it clear to everyone because I'm going to dedicate my life to making sure that everybody knows the truth.
Hamlin just spitting fire. It was just such a great job of both the writing, the delivery by the actor. And this is a way to just, I mean, he just roasts these people just by basically saying the truth. And we love these characters, so it hurts, right? But we know they just did some bullshit to Hamlin he didn't deserve. So it really, this is a great, like, Sopranos type of moral quandary. You're not even sure if you're supposed to be rooting for any of these people at this point. Spitting fire. I can't.
Bro, he's like Dylon. He's spitting hot flame, dude. Like, this is just a complete rip roaring rip in half of two of our favorite characters. It's 100% accurate. And there's a phenomenal reference in here to the Leopold and Loeb, right? I mean, that's just another, that's a banger, dude. So loved it. And this was Howard kind of his moment. And, you know, everything, this is kind of the pinnacle of everything that we've been building up to. And he had his day in the sun. Yes, he dies and he doesn't make it out of the season, but I'll be damned if he didn't get his justice here and speak his mind and have his moment in the sun with putting these two to shame. And we'll see what type of impact that has on, you know, on Jimmy and Kim moving forward, hearing that and then watching him die in front of them. I have a feeling it's going to be a robust impact moving forward. Maybe the ghost of Howard Hamlin plays an impact somewhere down the line.
I have not done any like fan crossover in my head shit to make him like a Star Wars Force Ghost thing yet, but that could happen. I mean, Hamlin's pretty wise. He could be advising some people and stuff. It feels like he'd show up glowing blue with a cool suit on and shit. Like, it would look good stylistically, I feel. All right. That brings us to our favorite moment or scene from season 6, part 1. Same basic thing here. We roughly wanked, I think, 25 scenes or moments, averaged them together. We're going to give you a couple honorable mentions and our top 5. Honorable mention number 4, I had it at 2. JVG did not rank it, which is not quite tracking with what he just said a hot minute ago, but it was Nacho's last stand. For me, again, pretty clear top 2 scenes here. You have the Lalo Hamlin, Kim Jimmy scene at the end and Nacho's last stand. I had it at 2. Jamie G explained having this unranked. I've already said basically everything I need to say about this scene. Absolutely everything about it was fantastic. And even though you knew how it was going to end, the tension was just bravo everything in that scene.
Cannot say anything different about it. Phenomenal. And yes, my ranking system got a little bit bunked up here. And let's just say this is certainly worthy of a top 10 moment. And it's a deep regret that I didn't get it in there.
That's what she said.
That brings us to honorable mention 3, and this was it's almost identical, just reversed to honorable mention 4 in terms of our ranking. But this was the opening scene of the season 6, episode 1, where we see the Saul's house being emptied out during the events of Breaking Bad. It must be kind of post Breaking Bad or right there towards the end of it. I've said everything that I could possibly say about this. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. It was well done. To me, it's my favorite part of this show, I think, so far. Maybe that might be bold, but it is an incredible scene, period. I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, we talked plenty about it. We talked about the teasers and the cold opens. I'll just say I was lower on it basically because if you cut it, if no one had ever seen it before and you just lost that scene and put something else there, they'd never know it was gone, kind of. It was just fun, and it was nice to get, again, the flash forward Easter eggs and whatnot, but realistically, it just was setting us up more or less. So there were so many other just great options to choose from. Something had to give. So that's why I knocked it down a little bit.
I ain't mad at you, baby. Do your thing.
Got nothing but love for you, boy. That brings us to honorable mention number 2. Another one that we talked about already a bit in our favorite quote, and that's Saul's last day at the salon when he shows up there and there's a line out the door, everyone's sitting in the, in the chairs and whatnot and everything. And Mrs. Nguyen shows up and she's pissed and Saul's giving out the cucumber water and having people take a left at the dryer. I had this one at 13. You had it at 8. So both fairly high on it. Again, this is from episode 4 of season 6. I thought it was just cool, right? Because this was the real beginning. This was like Batman's first day on the job, right? This was the first real. I know he was selling the cell phones and everything before, but this was felt like the first day of work from the Saul we see in Breaking Bad.
Fantastic, everything you said. No disagreements there, Magnum Mills.
That brings us to our first honorable mention 1, and this is a scene that's kind of similar in that it's where it's setting up some Saul stuff for the future. This is from episode 5 of season 6. I had it at 6, Jamie G at 15. And this is the scene after the fight between Hamlin and Saul. Saul goes home and they're in the bathroom, him and Kim, and she's trying to like look at his black eye and wondering what to do. And she tells him to embrace it. Like, wow, he's Saul Goodman. Wow, he'll fight for you. Again, I thought just a great moment between them, set up some future stuff and show just how much of the Saul persona actually might have come from Kim.
You're spot on there. Again, funny moment. You know, what do you say? Can't go to court next day looking like Leon Spinks. I mean, yeah, great moment. And I don't know, man. I ship them so hard. I love them together in their personal life. And yeah, everything you said, bro. Plus some. Cracked my top 15. This was hard. We probably could have did a top 50. I mean, there were a lot of good moments and good scenes.
Good news, bad news. Pretty soon we'll have all the time in the world to do an entire quotes thing if we want, because Saul Over Soon.
That cracks us into our top 5. Coming in at number 5, we've got the scene from episode 3, season 6. And this is a scene where Mike gets Nacho out of the truck and they talk and share a drink. And I think it's the good stuff there before Mike makes him, and I quote, less pretty. I had this at 9. Mills, you had this at 11. I think we're right there, pretty damn close on this one. For me, I love this side of Mike. Mike's a real one, dude. Like, he knew what he had to do here. He also, I think, had a certain level of respect for Nacho, and Nacho earned that. I just thought this was such a powerful interaction between the two, and also extremely meaningful to the plot line and to the storyline, considering how they started the first 3 episodes of this season. So it was heavily centered around the Nacho storyline, and this was it kind of starting to come to a head a little bit here. But dude, Mike's a real one, man. That's all I can say.
I mean, not even kind of, because Nacho asked him right away, when is it going to happen? Tomorrow. You know, this is the scene Mike just told him he's going to die tomorrow. That's a very heavy scene. And I think it was ultimately, again, they had that drink, and it's like the drink of true respect, right?
The drink was symbolic for sure and meaningful, but it was also kind of Mike's like private stash. I think, you know, they weren't drinking some freaking Barnett's vodka. I mean, they were drinking some real deal shit.
And we actually had a 2-way tie for 5, because we were 11 and 9 there for an average of 10. At the other T5 here, I had the scene at 10. You had it at 10. And this is from the part 1 finale here, episode 7 of season 6. And this is basically the mediation meeting where Hamlin starts to feel the effects of the whatnot, and his pupils are dilating, and he has to go get the pictures. It comes back, and it's the guy with the fucking frisbee, and everyone flips out. And yeah, that was just, I mean, that was the culmination, right, of the whole, we got to say it play out. At that point, we knew exactly how the con that had been set up for the entire season played out. It was great. I mean, the long game, and it worked. And you, by the end, you had a pretty good idea of what was going on, but not quite the full way. I think we still had a little bit of problems with maybe one little envelope exchange, but other than that, thought they pulled it off pretty flawlessly. And again, played perfectly. You know, the one line we get to that we didn't, I had maybe a little bit higher in my quotes, but it was such a throw off. And that's the one lady representative in there. And after all that happens and they bring everyone out of the room, she's like,
Is this how these usually go?
Yeah, the old lady.
Yeah, like that's just so, that was so
great.
good. Like, as if we just had throwaway lines or something, that would have been there. But again, like Cliff Main, the mediator bolt, like everybody was just on point in that scene.
Oh, bro, even Aaron, you know, even and let's not talk, Howard, like, and honestly, bro, there were so many little things that made this into like this incredible masterpiece of work on Jimmy and Saul's part with the con, like the drug shit. We got that little snippet of them in the vet's office, right, where it's like, you know, it's going to be like drinking a cup of coffee, you know, whatever. Like this, so many little things happened to make this work. This was a great scene. I love that we both had this in our top 10 at 10 even.
Yeah, we had more agreement than I would have thought, probably. At number 4, we have a scene from episode 2 of season 6. I had it at 8. You had it at 4. And this is when Nacho makes his escape and he gets in that shootout when he's in the truck against the cousins. One of the better action scenes, I would say, in the history of this show. They don't do a lot of them. That was pretty goddamn intense. I'm still not sure how Nacho did not get shot there. But but it was great, man. It was super tense. It was shot in a very interesting way. The cousins are always imposing. Just again, a real hype piece, got your blood pumping.
Edge of the seat shit. I'm telling you, man, I think that's one thing that'll really hold up on a rewatch of part one. How intense and white knuckling and edge of the seat suspenseful the first couple episodes were with the Nacho storyline, dude. Like, it was some crazy shit. And yes, incredible action scene, shot well. I loved it for all the same reasons.
We have 3 left, but we had a 2-way tie at number 2. First off, we have a scene from, again, episode 2 of season 6. I had it at 7, Jamie G at 3. And this is an initial part of the con where Jimmy goes into the country club and then he acts all offended and everything. It has to go use the restroom. That's when he slips the fake drugs into Hamlin's locker. But then they come in, so he's got to hide. So he takes all his clothes off and is just sitting there naked with a towel over his head. Evades detection. It's as fun as I mean, it's just describing it. If that's not fun to you, and I skipped some steps, so it's even more fun to watch. But seriously, right down to when they come in, and although realistically he could have made the argument, he could have just kind of walked away kind of and avoided the gaze or something. But the fact that his instinct, when like, you know, it's usually like fight or flight, you strip usually isn't one of the options. But Jimmy came up with it on the fly, and that was what set the whole thing off in Cliff Main. Again, we both liked it. Anything to add on that one?
No, I think this was one of my favorite cons kind of throughout with Jimmy, and this one kind of set the tone for where this, you know, season was going in terms of the ultimate con and all the little cons that play into this giant con with Howard. And this was just so much fun. And yeah, it's just probably maybe my favorite con of all. I loved it.
And at the other side of that tie for number 2, we have a scene from episode 5 of season 6. I had it at 4, you had it at 6, very close here. And that's the world, I don't know, middleweight, welterweight championship between Jimmy and Howard, where they just try to duke it out, old school gym class style from back in the day. You got a problem, put on the gloves. Howard does everything he can, right? Give him credit. He tried everything. There's so many great gags where he's like, Mr. H.O. Ward and everything. And it's also at the end of that scene where we get the first appearance of the private dick, who we later find out is in Saul and Kim's employ. So, dude, there's so much good stuff about that. And it was actually shot pretty well for the boxing stuff too. I really
and one thing about this, Mills, that I really enjoyed was for a second here, it kept you guessing, because you actually think maybe Howard has got Jimmy figured out, and maybe Howard is one step ahead, and H.O. Ward here with the private detective and stuff. So I just, it plays into something that comes bigger down the line when you realize that, you know, in fact, the private dick is working for Jimmy and not Howard. And that was part of it. They wanted him to. So it just really well, clever, thought out. And it was just a fun ass scene with them each having kind of their little moment in the sun in terms of ring presence and whatnot.
And for some more fun on this, maybe check out our YouTube channel. There may or may not be a little bit of a Saul Rocky themed boxing thing going on. So maybe you should check that out. And at number 1, we have a scene from the finale there, episode 7. I had it at 1, you had it at 5, and that's that final confrontation. You think you're done. You know, it's Hamlin and Kim and Jimmy. Nope. Lalo comes in, and yeah.
Again, we've talked about it so much with Tony Dalton playing Lalo Salamanca, the presence. He's so charming and witty and smart, but also absolutely terrifying and scary and imposing in his own way. And man, when you see him kind of creeping around and like, wow. And ultimately what happens here is just unbelievable. And he plays it so cool. He's smiling and nodding and, you know, just kind of letting Howard kind of have his final hurrah here. It just, in the look of pure fright and the terrifying, you know, looks on both Kim and Jimmy's face. And you realize in the moment, you're kind of so caught up in what's going on. Jimmy didn't know Lalo was alive. And so like a lot to this. Obviously this is going to bleed over and play a crazy amount into part 2. I cannot wait for it. But yeah, this is fantastic, bro. Fantastic.
You were wondering how Lalo was going to enter back into the plot. In looking back, he gets a little idea when he sees the cockroach after he realizes like he's in the sewer and he realizes that Gus bugged Tranquila, so he knows that he's alive for sure and everything. And he gets the cockroach. He's like, oh, Jimmy, I don't know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. You'll have to tune in to our big kind of season 6 part 2 preview, predictions, hopes, theories, all that fun stuff. Will be out in a little bit.
Now we're going to discuss the major character and plot arcs from season 6, part 1. We're going to discuss where these characters are now compared to where they were at the beginning of part 1. Strap in and get ready.
Strap in, strap on, strap off, whatever you got to do. Let's start kind of with two guys that are tied together. You have Gus and you have Mike. There's not a lot of movement here, right? They basically just been playing defense all season, more or less, kind of waiting for Lalo to show his head. I really think almost everything that's happened with them is ultimately going to be tied into the Lalo plot line. And even their development this season has just been, you see Gus, he's frustrated, all the precautions he has to take. Same thing with Mike. I'd say tired is maybe the main difference, is they've gotten a little worn down over the course of the season. You know, Mike's having to hang out with Kaylee via phone to stargaze and stuff like that. Yeah, Gus hates wearing the body armor. But that's kind of it, right? They don't, of all the characters, there's probably the least movement for them, I would say, from season 6, part 1 here.
I think the only thing you can make a case for is maybe Mike moves up in the power organization with Gus and kind of earns his way as Gus's kind of right hand, so to speak.
Yeah, that's fair, because he didn't get in that long ago with Gus, and he has to, by the time Breaking Bad starts, be his basically trusted number 2. So You are right on that. So, but that's kind of more subtle. It's not like a, you know, you don't get the Goodfellas, you know, get your finger prick kind of, here's a card scene or whatever, you know what I mean? He never really gets made, but you can tell by the way he is close to Gus and how Gus relies on him, kind of that. I'd say he's pretty close to that by the end here, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think he's there. And I think he's earned kind of Gus's trust and respect. We knew kind of who Gus was. I don't think there was much movement in finding out he's this huge, you know, power player in terms of meth. I mean, that's coming. We already know it because, again, it's a prequel show. But yeah, I think everything else you said is pretty spot on, Mills.
Yeah, they can't, unfortunately, because we know where these guys are when you start Breaking Bad. So there's not too much you can do with them. They both weren't there right at the start. So there's a little bit of wiggle room. But realistically, it's all tied to whatever happens with Lalo and ultimately getting that super lab built, I think. Let's just kind of move on to Lalo here. I will say we got a lot less Lalo this season than I thought we'd get. I really thought he was going to be like a force of nature, and we get him early on, and then he basically disappears for a few episodes. He does the European adventure for a hot minute and then shows up in the finale. I'm not against it. I think my main problem was just, again, you know, like Mike, I think you always want more Lalo.
I was completely wrong with this. Heading into this part 1 of season 6, I thought that the Lalo storyline might solve itself by the end of season 6, or I'm sorry, by the end of part 1 of season 6. So I thought that we would definitely be, you know, getting a lot more than him. We didn't. I think that just goes to show you they love this character and Tony Dalton, and they're going to stretch his ass out into, you know, part 2 as well.
What the hell did you just say?
I can't believe I just said stretch his ass out.
I will say that Lalo had a pretty interesting, even though he didn't have a lot. Like, he starts out in Mexico. He's going to go back with these guys back into the States. Ixnay that. We don't know where he's going. He just randomly kills a couple dudes. We don't see it. Next thing, he shows up in Germany and he's, you know, romancing Werner's widow. And again, shout out Tony Dalton. He was putting the moves on. She was feeling it. And then he had that crazy tense scene. We're like, oh my God, is he going to maybe kill her? And then he goes and chops the dude's leg off with an axe. And then he shows up in the sewer. I mean, that's a hell of, and then he shows up at Jimmy's and kills Hamlin. That's not a lot of screen time. That's basically his entire plot arc. It moves a lot, right? He eventually gets somewhere. He finds out information. He gets back to Albuquerque and he kills Hamlin. I'm just surprised that he did all that in such little screen time, more or less.
He accomplishes a lot, and we'll see how much they use him heading into part 2, but I think he's going to be maybe not as the big of a force as we thought, but I still certainly think his screen time increases as we head into part 2, don't you? At least until his situation is solved, for lack of a better word.
Again, you'll have to tune into our big, part 2 whatnot to find out. But my guess would be he's either going to more or less be off the board by the end of the first episode, or he's going to be there right to the end. I don't see him kind of going off the board in 3. I think it all depends on what they do with the other timelines and stuff like that. We'll, like Coolio, see you when we get there. Maybe pour one out, dude, because we've talked about them both a lot, but Nacho, Hammer and Howard Hamlin, adios. Rest in peace. Great characters, both original to Better Call Saul. That's got to scare you a bit that the characters whose fates we don't know are falling off the board. And we really have 2 of those left in Kim and Lalo. And it seems, I wouldn't say obvious, but Lalo, you think be more likely to go. But I would say the death of these 2 doesn't have us feeling any better about the possible outcomes for Kim. I mean, I would have liked to have seen Hamlin stick around and maybe figure out into the Gene timeline or something like that. It's conceivable. He's just a lawyer at HHM. He wouldn't have shown up in Breaking Bad. I don't think he had to go, but I thought they did a great job here to add even more depth to the character. Finally got to look inside his personal life and that kind of thing. You go to his therapist, it's a strange relationship with his wife. I thought it was all really well done, and it felt right, kind of not right, but it wasn't like, oh no, like I don't know how much more he had to give to the show, but he was so much fun, especially this season, that you just feel bad not having him around.
This was as good as it gets, I think, for both of them this season. They both brought it. They showed out, and I think we'll miss both of them.
And they both kind of got their featured episode,
yes,
which I enjoyed, and that's the kind of treatment you should get. This is the 6th season. These characters have been around for a long time. I think the show handled it extremely well, both from a plot, and a character, and an actor standpoint. And they both just killed it all the time. And especially, I do think I love what Hamlin did. Patrick Fabian was great, but I do have to say Michael Mando, though, in that final scene, man, when he's just screaming at Mark Margolis, and Mark Margolis is doing this crazy just face act, like in Nachos, and Michael Mando's matching him. I mean, that's it, man. That's top shelf. That's as good as you get in any fucking movie or anything. Like, that's as good as it fucking gets for acting, man. And again, Patrick Fabian slayed it too, but he didn't quite get to play a scene maybe with that energy. You know what I mean? Where you had 2 people like really like that kind of furious. So it was a little bit different with him. You know what I mean? That's who Hamlin was, right? He's this dude with the Namaste license plate, but he's got fucking issues.
Yes, he does. Well said, my dude. That brings us to, man, we could probably lump these together, but we'll break them down individually. Let's talk about the Jimmy Saul character here. I mean, for me, we saw kind of this season start out where Jimmy was he was still kind of Jimmy, okay? And I say that in terms of he was hesitant about doing this con with Howard. He was hesitant about kind of feeding Kim and being her right hand to make this thing happen. And I think he worried deep down inside about what it would do to Kim and can she ever come back from it. And it wasn't until the season kind of progressed that we saw him kind of make the transformation from Jimmy to Saul, for better or worse, even with Howard dying, especially with Howard dying in their apartment. I don't think he can ever look back to be Jimmy. I think he's Saul from here on out. I think we saw him kind of start the season as Jimmy, and he ended the season, I think, 100% as Saul.
Fair enough. I think that change probably started happening towards the end of season 5 at Bagman explicitly, because that was the thing. I mean, not only did he actually carry the bags of money, but he became Lalo's bagman, which is how he gets his start, because that's the first question the customer asks. Oh, you're the guy, right? You're Salamanca's lawyer. And he has to embrace that. And you're right. I mean, I think character-wise, I don't know if he's moved all the way yet. I think he's about in the same place he was at the end of season 5, but he'll basically do anything for Kim, which is why he does the Hamlin thing. But for the most part, he's content just to be, I think, cartel adjacent. He's not really quite all the way there yet. Like, again, we see how many of the Saul ideas actually come from Kim. He's not really as, like, he does it in his cons, but in his real life, he's not necessarily that audacious or anything. He's not playing a character all the time, just when he's working, basically, when he's slipping Jimmy, or in this case, Saul Goodman. They've done basically everything they need to do, other than getting him his caddy, more or less. he's positioned to be Saul Goodman. All he needs is whatever the event that happens is that basically makes him compartmentalize it all the way. Where he just basically, maybe he's a little bit of Jimmy at home, but you never see it in Breaking Bad. He's Saul Goodman. I'd say maybe the one exception is at the very end when you get him and Walter in that basement when they're waiting to be disappeared. That's maybe the one time we get a little bit of Jimmy. Yeah, I think it all tracks. I would almost just say, even despite all of the screen time and everything he has, he probably had, quite a bit less kind of movement from a character standpoint than say Kim did.
Oh, yes, she did. And does that perfect segue into Miss Wexler, Kim. Let's dive in here. I mean, did it surprise you to see how all in she was on this con with Howard and how she kind of officially broke bad and like made choices to like not stop Breaking Bad and just did this? I mean, did you see her going this far?
It's so interesting where they've taken her, because I believe it was the end of, there was the season 4 finale when Jimmy tells her like he's gonna change his name legally to Saul Goodman, and he gives her the finger gun and he's like, it's all good, man. And she's kind of like broken. And then at the end of season 5, she does that, the fucking finger guns back to him about the Hamlin thing. But you do see like she does really enjoy all this pro bono work. She wants to be like a good lawyer. That's all she wants to do, is try to help people who no one else is willing to help. But she passes that up. I mean, the show does the great thing, right? They give her the gift wrapped choice, the Santa Fe thing. It's like, El Dorado, basically, the city of gold. It's the dream. All she has to do is drive there, and she's on the road headed there. And she literally pulls a U-turn and heads back towards danger. I love what the show has done with it. I think, obviously, Rhea Seehorn is fucking killing it. Everything about this is great, except for the fact that I'm just scared to death for Kim.
Oh man, I'm so nervous for Kim. Like,
she definitely, like at the beginning of the season, right? Like those finger guns at the end of 5 was her starting to break bad. And then this was the final, like seeing Hamlin get his fucking brains blown out. Like Mike would say, like she's really in the game now. There's no argument that she is game adjacent. She's a major character in the game.
When we started this season, maybe, just maybe, you could convince yourself that Kim was going to just kind of sail off in the sunset or just end up someplace else or just kind of get away from it all and be okay. The way we ended the season, I think you have a harder time convincing yourself of that, which sucks.
Yeah. The only thing I ever kind of came up with, like the happy ending for her, was basically Saul doing the thing where like he pushes her away deliberately for her own good. That's a pretty common trope, but that might have made some sense and then allowed for reconciliation in the dream timeline. Maybe that still happens. Again, the flashback, I think, added some nice depth to the character. Although I do worry, if we open another episode with a flashback of Kim, oh my God, Kim's going to die. This episode radar is going to be flashing. A lot. I'm going to be scared. Very like opposite of Bone Crusher, basically.
Yeah, they'll be able to spot that thing from space. Magnum Mills, let's move into plot arcs. There's really 2 main ones here, right? I mean, we've got Lalo's quest to find proof, and we've got Kim and Jimmy and their con on Howard. I mean, that was kind of the 2 main things here. And of course, the fallout of the Lalo thing, which led kind of Nacho, right? I mean, and we saw that kind of throughout the first, I think, 3 episodes or so there, where it kind of heavily led, but it was wrapped into kind of the Lalo situation, I think.
I think we've paid homage to Nacho's arc, and it ended in the way that left Gus still in good standing with the cartel. So what Lalo has to do is find a way to disprove that. It gets to that call he gets when he talks to Hector at the end of episode 1 of the part 1 here. And he's like, oh, I gotta go get proof. I remember the time we were like, all right, what is it going to be? Like the super lab thing? No, it's got to be more than that, right? He's looking how hard he had to get just to find out where it is. And even then, the dude just told me he built a hole in the ground. I mean, Gus told the cartel he was building like freezers for his chickens or whatever. In theory, he could still do that probably. I guess the dude did hear like, mother of all super labs or something. So the guys must have heard a couple things and talked amongst themselves. But I think for the most part, we covered it. I think we'll both probably say that we wish we got more Lalo, but what we got was pretty cool. Like, I didn't think we were going to get Lalo's European vacation.
No, I definitely didn't. Or an almost hookup with Werner's, widow. I mean, that was pretty
Yeah,
wild.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Lalos or whatever the sewer dwelling Lalo Salamanca binoculars or whatever. He's so much fun, dude. That's
Can't argue that at all. And really that leads us to the Kim and Jimmy con on Howard. We've kind of talked about this one. I personally thought it was really cool how they did it in stages and kind of kept you guessing. And you saw all the post-its on the back of the painting and just all the little things that went into this being this big gigantic con, and it kind of stretched out the whole season. Big fan of it. I thought it was really well done, very smart, and kind of cunning in a way with how they did it, and just kept you guessing as a viewer. I don't know about you. We didn't, at one point we kind of had everything figured out, but how, right? And it was up until the last episode or two where really you don't know how this thing's going to shake out. That's a job well done, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think some of the Reddit detectives got a little bit ahead of where we did. I don't think we ever quite got to putting the stuff on the pictures. I think our main problem was when the dude does the envelope swap that you don't see to make sure that Hamlin has the wrong pictures in the meeting. Other than that, it was pretty good. I mean, it had very great individual parts. Obviously, the country club thing we talked about, the stealing Hamlin's car thing we've talked about a little, but I'll be getting Wendy involved even and kicking her out in front of Cliff Maine. I thought they set it up really well. It paid off. I'd say 98% for me, and especially when you get the final scene after they redo the pictures and Jimmy, he's just running across campus and he hands him off to the private dick in the car and he gives him a thumbs up and just hauls right back into traffic and almost causes 3 accidents. I don't know why, but I thought that was fantastic. So I would say it was worth it. They structured the whole first part of the season around the con. I'm okay with it. It all, they had to pull it off. They had to land the plane to make it work. I think they landed the plane pretty smoothly. I would have liked if maybe he stuck around and then started trying to con them or fuck with them or something. I think that would have been, or tried to team up with them.
Yeah,
I would have been cool with
Hamlin
that.
doing a con would have been very
That's
cool.
the one thing again I wish I would have gotten is a Hamlin and Saul, Hamlin and Jimmy, collaboration, a little featured on the album kind of deal. I would have loved that.
And maybe Hamlin has that moment where he's like, Jimmy, Chuck was brilliant in the courtroom. You're brilliant in the con. I mean, maybe there would have been this little happy feeling between the two. I don't know, but a guy can dream.
Yeah, beast in the streets, freak in the sheets. We know what you're saying.
You got it, my dude. One last time, R.I.P. Nacho and Hamlin. Really enjoyed them. Not much more we can say about it than we already did. Spot on. We'll miss him going forward, but I'm glad it's only part 2 of one season that we have to live without him. And with that said, my dude, it is time to hand out some Saul Goodman pinky rings for season 6, part 1. We ranked each of the 7 episodes on a scale of 1 to 10 pinky rings. Let's review our grades here before we go any further. Mills, break this baby down.
Roger Dodger. This is probably one of those times if you watch on YouTube, you see him on screen, so it's easier. But if you're listening, here we go. Episode 1, Wine and Roses, I had it 8.8. You had it 9.5. Episode 2, Carrot and Stick, I had it 9.0. You also had it 9.0. Episode 3, Rock and Hard Place, I had it 9.8. You had it 8.9. Episode 4, Hit and Run, I had it 8.8. You had it 9.0. Episode 5, Black and Blue, I had it 8.0. You had it 7.9. Episode 6, Axe and Grind, I had it 8.0. You had it 7.5. And finally, Planet Execution, I had at 9.8 and you had at 9.4.
Looking back, I had episode 1, Wine and Roses, rated the highest at 9.5. I think I just put it kind of over the top because of how much I love that opening scene, that cold open. It is still, I'm going to stick it at 9.5, but it is not my highest rated episode any longer. I have got to move Plan and Execution from 9.4, my second highest. I got to bump that baby up to 9.7. That is literally phenomenal work. It all came together. There's nothing more I can say. It was literally my favorite. And Mills, you had 2 episodes graded at 9.8 here, which in the world of sports brings us to a tie. We do not accept ties here on this show. What are you going with as your favorite?
Well, you only accept Saul's ties, right? When they're in a cold open, those are the only ties.
Dude, how great were those ties falling slowly? They were
cool.
falling slowly.
They were pretty
awesome.
cool. this is a case of where, obviously we did these as they came up, and I had Rock in a Hard Place is the final episode for Nacho there. Plan Execution is the finale. I knocked Plan Execution basically 2 points from a perfect 10 for the envelope thing. I'm going to break the tie here. I'm going to bump Plan Execution up by 0.1 to give it the 9.9, because that's it's an incredibly minor quibble. In Plan Execution just had a little bit more of a moving part situation than Rock and Hard Place. Like, it became pretty obvious early on that Rock and Hard Place was going to be Nacho's last stand, whereas Plan Execution really kept you guessing literally until the very end. So that's why I'm going to put it above Rock and Hard Place. But again, not a lot you can go wrong with here, which is why it's time to talk about our overall grade for season 6, part 1. That's an overall pinky rings. Like, these are playoff pinky rings. They have extra diamonds and all that. It's not quite the old ghost faced bird on the arm, but it's some pretty cool jewelry that you can wear when your top's down. After doing all of this, we had an average of 8.8 overall for the first 7 episodes. I had an average overall of 8.9. You had an average overall of 8.7. So Jamie G, right now your average for the season would be 8.7. Sticking with that for season 6, part 1, or are you going up or down?
I am going to bump up just a smidge here. I'm going to take this thing up to 9.0. Just looking back on it and going through the exercises of analyzing the moments, the quotes, the character plot lines, everything they did to kind of get this show ready for its conclusion, which is so interesting because it's a prequel show. We basically know everything except, Kim and Lalo heading into this part. And that's exactly how it should be. They set it up perfectly. I got to bump it up just a smidge here, bro, and give it the solid 9.0. This is, for honest to God, this show, this is for me, it doesn't get much better. This is really good work, man. I mean, Breaking Bad, for as great and amazing as that is, don't sleep on Better Call Saul, people. This show is also very freaking awesome.
Yeah, the stands are out there on the internet already, but I think it is a legitimate conversation again, especially like they've already landed this plane. You got 6 more left. If they really land it, especially given the added degree of difficulty of a prequel, to pull it off because where some of this stuff has to go. Again, very impressed. I'm feeling the same thing here. I'm going to bump it up by 0.3 up to a 9.2. You had a little bit of a lull, and I remember in 5 and 6 saying, I reserve the right to retroactively bump these up a little bit, especially if the con pays off. I think the con paid off, so I'm going to cash in that right I reserved there, my little bit of a futures contract, going to cash that in, take my option, 9.2, pick your shits.
I know we can both agree on one thing. This season needed more Mike. I mean, it's not like you can ever have too much Mike, right?
In anything. I mean, whatever you need in life, whether you're just hanging out and drinking a beer or you need to rebuild your deck, you call Mike.
Call Mike for everything.
I mean, honestly, that sounds like something we'd probably put in the predictions thing we're going to do, but that's not really a prediction. It's more of a hope, which is good because this is going to be our hopes, our predictions, our theories, everything about season 6, part 2. We'll be dropping that soon. We do not promise any accuracy, but it should be a good time.
Thanks again for checking us out. We really, really appreciate it. Please remember, you got to take a second. It takes literally 1 second. Like, subscribe on YouTube, and, rate and comment on our podcast app. That would be killer too. Helps us out a ton. And again, we really appreciate it. Mills, tell our wonderful audience where they can find all of our content. And spoiler alert, folks, it's more than just kick-ass shows like Better Call Saul.
It's more shows like a kick-ass show like Better Call Saul. And thanks again for checking out Saul Over Soon. Please make sure you're following us. You can find us on any podcast app at Saul Over Soon. Same thing on social media at Saul Over Soon. You can send your feedback to sauloversoon@gmail.com. And we're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show. We are also covering The Boys from Amazon on Compound B, a show about the boys. Find us on your favorite podcast app at Compound B, on social media at Compound B Pod. We just wrapped up our coverage of Ozark from Netflix on the Ozark podcast. on your favorite podcast app and social media. And Netflix just released season 6 of Peaky Blinders. We've already covered that on PBP, a Peaky Blinders podcast. Find it on your favorite podcast platform and on social media at Peaky Podcast. And we also just wrapped up our coverage of season 3 of Barry from HBO. Man, it was a banger. You should check us out on the Barry Podcast. Same thing, Barry Podcast on your favorite app and on social media. Finally, like Rockefeller Records, we can't stop, won't stop covering It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on The Night Pod Cometh. Find us on your favorite podcast app and social media at Night Pod Cometh. Thanks again for checking out Saul Over Soon. We'd love y'all. And just be careful, please. You're in the game now.
And it's Saul Over Soon. We'll see you soon for our season 6, part 2 hopes and predictions.
This has been Saul Over Soon, a Better Call Saul podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. We are in no way affiliated with Better Call Saul, AMC, Sony Pictures Television, Netflix, or any other production company or association. The views here are those of the hosts only and do not represent any other entity. Thanks again for checking us out, and stay tuned because it's Saul Over Soon.